And a good Friday evening to you all once again. We are back. It is time for another BS and a beer, and I'm continuing the football theme because, why not? It's, in my opinion, the best sport out there. The college season is in full swing. The NFL is unmitigated chaos, and I am absolutely here for it. So tonight, for the BS and a beer, we slide said beer into frame. We have from Boulevard Brewing in Kansas City, Missouri, I do believe, yes, there it is, Kansas City, Missouri. This is Tank 7, an American Saison style ale, which clocks in at 8.5%, and which means I know it's going to be good. So we're going to get into it. We have our, and I put it in quotes, the quote French jelly glass, end quote, because it's not French, it's American, but it's the similar style, the old jelly glasses that they would use in the French countryside, because this is a Saison. Ooh, let's get some poofy white head in there, and that looks fantastic, and that is going to smell good. I don't even have to smell because it is fresh. I know it's going to be good, so we're going to pause. We're going to flip it around, and we got a ton of trophies to talk about. This is going to be a good one. And here we are over here. Oh, and this is going to be, and you can kind of see it, yeah, a lot of carbonation coming up, and that is what this is. These are what they call French farmhouse-style beers. Predominantly very champagne-like. It's mainly in the style originated in Belgium, but it is very common throughout the Belgian and the French countrysides. And they call them farmhouse ales because essentially most of them in the old days were made on farms specifically for their own consumption. And usually, because it's a Belgian yeast, it's going to have like kind of a banana flavor. Have you ever smelled like a really good Belgian ale, or even something like Hoegaarden, the Belgian white ale? It does kind of have a banana hint to it. That's perfectly fine. That's just the yeast. But normally they're not this strong. Normally 8.5% is much stronger than they normally are. But it's an American style, so that's what we do. Very light, kind of bitter. There's that banana flavor. And, yeah. Wow, that flavor went away a lot faster than I thought it should. But, still nice. Refreshing. A good summer ale, as I sit here in mid-October. That's how we do. We're going to continue on with that. That's going to be good. Last week, we talked about the trophy games. Not the rivalry games, but the trophy games. There weren't many because the American conference is kind of small, or the American as it is now. It's kind of a smaller conference. Now we're into the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. This is a big one. There are a lot of teams, and shout out to sports card ripping teacher Tony Black and the commish. Notre Dame is in here a lot. They can claim independent all they want, but let's be honest, they're in the ACC. So for all intents and purposes. However, there are two that we did talk about last week. The battle between North Carolina State and East Carolina for the Victory Barrel, and SMU and Rice for the Mayor's Cup. We talked about them last time. And there are three of them, actually, that have gone defunct through the ACC. But we're going to take a look at that in a minute, because we're going to start going. I'm just knocking stuff over. You can't see what I'm destroying, but it's the universe, put it that way. We're going to start right at the beginning. I go alphabetically. So we're going to start with Boston College versus Clemson. It is the battle for the O'Rourke McFadden Trophy. Now, this one, obviously not geographic. Boston College up in Boston, Clemson in South Carolina. However, this was named after two alumni, Charlie O'Rourke, both college football Hall of Famers and former players. Charlie O'Rourke played for Boston College, and Banks McFadden, who played for Clemson. The rivalry dates back to 1940. The trophy itself only been around since 2008. However, who has it? Clemson. Clemson currently has the trophy. They lead the series with a record of 22-9-2 over the years. And the next time they will play will be in 2027. That is an infrequent one, but it still does happen. Some of these the next time this will probably be the last time you ever hear of them. Sticking with Boston College, and guess what? It's Notre Dame #1. Notre Dame currently has the trophy, the Frank Lehigh Memorial Bowl, right there. But this is the Holy War. Boston College Notre Dame goes back to 1975, and it is a large cut crystal bowl that was donated. And a lot of these things are really interesting, especially involving Notre Dame. This trophy was donated from the Notre Dame Club of Boston. A lot of alumni all throughout the country from Notre Dame are responsible for a lot of these trophies. Notre Dame currently has the trophy, currently leads the series 18-9. They will play again November the 1st of this year, 2025. However, future beyond there, nobody knows. It's very, very much in doubt just based on scheduling. And now we go to California, because this is California versus Stanford. This one is called the Big Game, and I love it when they have a good name. The Big Game is played for the Stanford Axe. Come on! It's an axe. The Stanford Axe, the rivalry has been around since 1892. The axe itself first made its appearance in 1899 as an actual legitimate lumber axe that the Stanford folk were using to behead a straw dummy dressed up in California colors as an effigy. Goes back to, like I said, the 1890s. The very first game, by the way, was the person that helped organize it did go on to bigger and better fame, because the student manager for the Stanford football team back then was a guy by the name of Herbert Hoover. Yeah, he later went on to become president of the United States of America. Now, the Big Game is one of the oldest in college football, and more than likely the oldest in the western part of the country, just going back, well over 100 years. And yeah, they steal the axe. They steal the axe back and forth. Stanford and California, they just, swipe it back and forth. Currently, California, Cal Berkeley has possession of the axe, but Stanford leads the series with a record of 65, 51, and 11, so actually pretty close. They will be playing again this year, November the 22nd, and I forgot to write down where, but November 22nd, the Big Game and the Stanford Axe will be on the line. Now, down to the Carolinas, because I go alphabetically. This time it is Clemson versus North Carolina State in the Textile Bowl. Going back to 1899, the trophy wasn't around until 1981. Both teams, Clemson and NC State, founding members of the ACC way back when. And weirdly, they call it the Textile Bowl because they are two of the biggest and probably most predominant university textile programs in the world. So it kind of made sense. Currently, Clemson has the trophy. They lead the series 61-30-1, and the next game will be in 2027. Again, the future of the Textile Bowl is, I don't know, it's kind of up in the air, but they will see. Sticking down the Carolinas, now we turn our attention to Duke and UNC, the University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels. This one is for the Victory Bell, very old rivalry going back to 1888. Trophy came around in 1948, and the Victory Bell, granted that the platform it's on was added much later, but that's part of the deal. You wheel it out there, and they used to spray paint the platform in the various colors. But it came from the UNC head cheerleader Norman Spur and Duke's Loring Jones. They, quote-unquote, obtained the bell from a railway station, and it is put on the platform, and as such, it is spray-painted with the winning team's colors. Will be played again November the 22nd, along with the Big Game for the Axe. And currently, Duke has the trophy. UNC leads the series with a record of 64, 41, and 4. We're going to take a pause, and we're going to have some of this because we're barely scratching the surface. So apologies. Pour yourself a drink if you got one. And Settle in, because there's a lot of trophies in the ACC. Now, as it gets warmer, now more of the flavors coming out. So more of that kind of spice and the fruity ester flavors coming out of the yeast. Now I'm starting to taste the wheat. Man, that is good stuff. And again, 8.5% doesn't taste a thing like 8.5%, and that is mildly, slightly terrifying. Speaking of terrifying, down to Florida we go. Now this was part of, it used to be a three-way battle, but the three-way battle trophy is still there, but it replaced one of the others. This one, however, is still there. We're going to get to the three-way in a second, because this is the battle between Florida and Florida State for the McCalla Trophy. There's the trophy right there. The trophy itself, or the rivalry itself, and the trophy dates back to 1958. And from what the lore goes, the trophy was found in a swamp, when in reality it was kind of dreamed up by one of the club members in 2008. But, everything needs a good story. Florida currently has both the trophy and the winning record in the series, 38-28-2. The next game will be played November the 29th of this year. So after Thanksgiving, look for some McCalla Trophy action. But that is all part of the bigger three-way rivalry between Florida, Florida State, and Miami, in which they compete for the Florida Cup, which I think is really cool. The Florida Cup came around 2002. It's a 24-inch tall statue on a cherry wood base that's in the shape of Florida. The gold-plated, and it's really cool looking. I mean, some of these trophies are really cool looking. It's a gold-plated pewter football, and the three little curly cues, the curly stands, they are meant to represent the three teams in the rivalry, Florida, Florida State, and the University of Miami. Miami currently sitting there with the Florida Cup, and because they have won, I think, both of them, they are in no danger of losing it this year, but we will have to see for next year. Moving along, we're going to stick with Florida, but we're going to kind of move up a little ways. We have Florida State versus Virginia for the Jefferson Epps Trophy. Virginia currently holding it, and this goes back to 1995, because that was the time when the University of Virginia was the first ACC team to beat Florida State. So they decided to make a trophy out of it, and it goes back to the names in question. The Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, the founder of the University of Virginia, and his grandson, Francis W. Epps, who was a two-time mayor of Tallahassee, Florida. So there's your connection right there. It is a silver pitcher that Epps himself presented to the city of Tallahassee in 1842, and it is set on a base that was made of the McGuffey ash, a tree that ultimately perished due to some sort of blight. And let's see, the trophy itself, when did the trophy come around? The trophy, I think, actually came around in 95, but the pitcher itself was very, very old. The next one will be played... Actually, no, they just played recently. I'm sorry. They played September the 26th, where Virginia beat Florida State. They will play again next year, but currently in the trophy series, Florida State is up 14-5. But still a very close series. Moving on. This one I like. Shout out to other Zach Squared. Because this is Georgia Tech versus Georgia for the Governor's Cup, but the game itself is called Clean Old-Fashioned Hate. God, I love it. I love it. I love that so much. It's purely, absolutely purely a geographic rivalry. Dates back to 1893. 1995 is when the trophy came around, the Governor's Cup. The big one, the 2024 game, was the last time it was played, and it went to 8 overtimes. That will be played November the 28th of this year. Georgia currently holds the trophy and leads the series 72-41-5. Continuing on with Georgia, we have Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt, the Commodores this time, and it's for the Gold Cowbell. The rivalry itself dates back to 1892. 1924, the Golden Cowbell was created, and then it was lost for about 70 years because it was rediscovered in 2016. And it goes back to the two coaches at the time. Georgia Tech had a guy by the name of John Heisman. You may have heard of him. And Dan McGugan at Vanderbilt. 2024 it was last played. No idea when or if it will be played again, just with scheduling. But currently, Georgia Tech leads the series 20-16-3. However, Vanderbilt currently has the possession of the gold cowbell. Now, I like this one. This is one that I actually really like. This is another geographic battle. This is between the University of Louisville and the University of Cincinnati. This one for the Keg of Nails. That is cool. It's come on, the Keg of Nails. Who wouldn't want to play for that? The rivalry goes back to 1929, and it began as kind of a goodwill trade kind of thing between fraternities at Louisville and Cincinnati, because they determined that the winning team of the football game would be, quote-unquote, tough as nails. I like it. However, the problem with the Keg of Nails is it hasn't been played since 2013. It's been on hiatus for the longest time. The future is very much in doubt. Louisville currently has the Keg of Nails, but Cincinnati is up in the series 30-23-1. And as I take a pause for something like this, it really makes me think that, man, you don't want trophies like this to go away. Yes, I understand, and this is the problem, the myriad of money that's getting thrown around in college football these days. But it's not good. Like, you see the result of all this money going and people just moving around everywhere and the skill level just dropping considerably. And it makes you miss stuff like this, the real old school traditions. And that's just a shame because, you're looking like the Keg of Nails very well might never be played for again. It will just reside at the University of Louisville, where it has been sitting for the past 12 years, unfortunately. Sip time. The aroma's really starting to tone down. I do have a little more in the bottle, so we can get a little more in at the end. We'll see. I've been on a roll. This is actually, I was afraid this was going to take a lot longer. I thought I'd be much further back at this point, but we're rolling because a lot of these just very short histories. Mainly, I just like to look at the trophies. But sip time. That's good sip, and it's very carbonated. I touched on that last week, because they just use a lot of sugar, a lot of yeast, and that's why it gets high alcohol. The yeast eats sugar and basically farts out alcohol. That's how fermentation works. Now, another geographic battle. It's Louisville versus the University of Kentucky for the Governor's Cup. There's a lot of Governor's Cups, a lot of Mayor's Cups. This one goes back to 1912. In 1994, the trophy was created. Kentucky leads the series 19-16, although Louisville currently has the cup. And here's why it hasn't been played that much. From 1924 to 1994, they simply just didn't play the game. Those two never played each other. But then an old friend that we talked about a lot last week, Howard Schnellenberger at the University of Louisville, brought it back in 1994. It will be played again this year, November the 29th. And you know what? I like watching that. I really want to follow some of these games. Now, I'm doing this so I can actually keep track of it. We go, and speaking of Howard Schnellenberger, he's back again. This is Louisville versus the University of Miami for the Schnellenberger Trophy. Goes back to 1993, and then in 2023, they created the trophy after the legendary Howard Schnellenberger. That actually is a pair of his bronzed cowboy boots, which I think is really cool. And Howard Schnellenberger was coach at the University of Miami from 1979 to 1983, and then Louisville from 85 to 94. So he was all over and has great ties. And again, that is a pair of his bronze cowboy boots. And this is a very new trophy. The trophy only came around in 2023. And right now, series is tied 1-1. Miami currently holds the Schnellenberger Trophy. Now let's get ready to settle in for a bunch of Notre Dame stuff. This is Notre Dame and Michigan State. Battle for the Megaphone Trophy. The rivalry itself goes back to 1897. In 1949, the Megaphone Trophy, was donated by alumni clubs from the various schools. It hasn't been played in a while. Last time it was played was 2017. It will be played next year, September the 19th, 2026. Currently, Notre Dame holds the trophy, and they lead the series 48-28-1. We're just going to stick with Notre Dame. This is Notre Dame and Navy this time, the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, called the Rip Miller Trophy. The rivalry goes back to 1927 and was one of the longest consistently played ones. It played every year from 1927 until 2019, obviously the 2020 season being canceled because of COVID, but then it resumed right after that. It was named after a man by the name of Edgar Rip Miller, played for Notre Dame, and then became a longtime coach and administrator at the Naval Academy. And also, it's partly an homage to Notre Dame's friendship with the Naval Academy, because back in World War II, the Navy made Notre Dame a training center and thus paid a lot of money there to keep them afloat to train their recruits, and Notre Dame never forgot that. Let's see, where is it at here? It will be played again, actually very soon, November the 8th. Notre Dame will be taking on Navy again. Notre Dame has the trophy, and the series right now, it's kind of one-sided, 83-13-1 in favor of the Irish. This one, a little more balanced, but still a little more the less. And again, Notre Dame has the trophy, but this is Notre Dame and Purdue, this time for the Shillelagh Trophy. There's another Shillelagh coming up in a little bit, just bear with me. But an old rivalry going back to 1896. The trophy itself was an actual Shillelagh brought over from Ireland by a man by the name of Joe McLaughlin. He was a merchant seaman and Notre Dame supporter who brought it back. It will be played again next year, September the 26th of 2026, and Notre Dame currently leading the series 59-26-2. And in case anybody's wondering, because they do have ties in this stuff very often, in the event of a tie, the trophy remains with the school that had it coming into the game. And now, once again, Notre Dame is back. This time, Notre Dame and Stanford. Not very geographical, but this is for the Legends Trophy. The rivalry began in 1925, but then in 1989, and here we go again, the Notre Dame Club of the San Francisco Bay Area donated a Dublin crystal bowl that sits atop a base made of California redwood for the trophy. Will be played again next month, November the 29th, 2025. Notre Dame currently leads the series 23-14. Will somebody stop Notre Dame? No, because here's the next one with Notre Dame. This is Notre Dame and USC, this time for the jeweled Shillelagh. Going back to 1926, played every year since then, with the exception of 3 years for World War II, 1943-45, and then the 2020 season for COVID. It is either oak, the Shillelagh itself is made of either oak or blackthorn that they can determine, from Ireland. It was introduced in 1952 by, you guessed it, the Notre Dame Alumni Club of Los Angeles. The next meeting is, actually, what is today's date? I think the meeting is tomorrow, the 18th. Yeah, so October the 18th, it will be played again. Notre Dame has the trophy, and they have the series lead 50-37-5. That is a pretty looking Shillelagh, if I do say so myself. Couple more, bear with me, we're having fun. Hope you guys are still here. If you are, my condolences. This time, we go to Texas, and I like this one. This is SMU versus TCU, the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs, alma mater of the LaDainian Tomlinson, by the way. The battle for the Iron Skillet. That's right, the battle for the Iron Skillet. And there's actually a good story with this one. Whether it's true or not, who's to say, but I like this one. Goes back to 1915. Been played every year with the exception of 7 years throughout. The story goes back to 1946, in which at a game, a group of SMU fans were frying up some frog legs in a skillet in the parking lot. A group of Texas Christian fans took exception to it and said that the winner of the game should end up getting both the frog legs and the skillet itself. And the skillet right now belongs to Texas Christian with a record, a very close one, 54, 43, and 7. And then it's the question, because I didn't go to a school that had any big trophies, I actually did find out that I was incorrect in my statement. There are rivalry and trophy games at the Division III level. It turns out I was on the roster for 2 of them, although it was in the pre-trophy days. And I'll get to that maybe at some point if I ever cover Division III with this. But where do you store these things? Especially some of the big ones, like, from last week we talked about the bones, a 100-pound, bronze casting of a rack of ribs. Where in the world do you put that? All I know is, let's go. But again, an iron skillet. We love to see it. Now, almost done. Continuing on with SMU, this time versus Navy. Navy poking its head back in again, this time for the Gans Trophy. That goes back to 1930. And then in 2009, the trophy came about, named after Frank Gans, who was a Navy alumni and coach at the Naval Academy. Also was a coach at SMU, Southern Methodist, and actually later became the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs for a little bit. Was last played in 2023, but with the schedules the way it is, who knows if it'll come back. SMU currently has the Gans Trophy and a very narrow lead in the series with a record of 13-12. Almost done. We got 1, 2, 3 more. 3 more, then we'll just briefly touch on the three defunct ones. And although I do have to say, I'm very sad that 2 of that really, especially 2 of these are gone, because they're going to be interesting. Time for another sip. We love the sip. You guys enjoying this? I hope you are. I'm enjoying this. I love doing this stuff. This is great. Captive audience, a beer, rambling. 3 of the 4 food groups right there. Now, we actually come up to my neck of the woods in both ways. This is the Ben Schwartzwalder Trophy, played between the University of Syracuse and WVU, West Virginia University. It goes back to 1945, but was created in 1993 after the then head coach, Ben Schwartzwalder. He was then coach of Syracuse, but a West Virginia alumni sadly and unexpectedly passed away in April of that year. It was created in his honor. And now here's where this was interesting, and this is a little side quest for anybody that's interested. The trophy itself was designed by former Syracuse alumni, a guy by the name of Jimmy Ridlin, who after his football career became actually a very good sculptor, and in 1988 actually sculpted the Outland Trophy. For those of you that don't know, the Outland Trophy is essentially the Heisman Trophy for linemen, offensive and defensive linemen. And unlike the actual Heisman Trophy, the winners of the Outland Trophy are usually really good. Prove me wrong. That's all I'm saying. Prove me wrong. It hasn't been proved wrong in a long time. Syracuse currently has the trophy. They lead the series 34-17 and just unfortunately future very much in doubt as to whether or not that will continue. Back to Virginia we go. It's Virginia and Virginia Tech, this time for the Commonwealth Cup. Goes back to 1895, but weirdly nobody seemed to care about it until the 80s, when it really took over for all sports, not just football. And that's the thing, a lot of these are rivalries between the schools in all sports, not necessarily just football. We have the cup. It is made of marble, and it sits atop, not in this picture, but it sits atop a cherry wood base, and it was made in 1996 because that's like I say, it wasn't until like the early to mid 80s when that rivalry actually took off. At that point, they were just playing. Virginia Tech currently has the trophy and a lead in the series, 62, 38, and 5. And that's crazy how it's been around. They've played that many games, but the trophy really didn't come around for another year or another several years. Will be played again November the 29th of this year. And again, that one, future not in doubt, more than likely that'll be back in very, very soon. And now, the final one before the defunct ones, and I like one of the defunct ones. This is Virginia Tech versus WVU, West Virginia, for the Black Diamond Trophy. You know what it is. If you know West Virginia, you know that area. It's coal mining region. Black Diamond, obviously referring to the coal. Goes back to 1912, completely geographically based and just basically on the coal mining. WVU currently has the trophy and the lead in the series, 30, 23, and 1. However, it was last played in 2022. Next game is a good old TBD. We don't know if it's going to come back or not. Kind of hope it does. I love the trophy games, especially that one. That one's cool looking. But speaking of the cool looking trophies, and then we're going to lean back a little bit because I've done with the really rambling part of the notes. Now we've just got the random goofy stuff that I found. There are 3 that used to exist that don't anymore. 2 of them are 3-way battles. I wish this one was still around. I would put up a picture of it, but I don't think one exists. However, it was based off that. That is the statue of a cod called the Sacred Cod. It's in the Massachusetts House of Representatives, I believe it is. But it was formerly a 3-way battle between Boston College, Boston University, and Holy Cross. Played every year from 1954 to 1962. However, in the 1963 season, the game itself was canceled due to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and they just simply never bothered to reschedule it, and the trophy died right there. Not much else in the way of it, although the cod was a nod to the fishing industry in that part of the world up in Massachusetts. And now, we talked about the Florida Cup and the McCalla Trophy, which is still there, although there was a second part to that. It was Miami versus Florida, and it was for the Seminole War Canoe. That was played from 1944 to 1987, and then went defunct, and they just strictly competed for the Florida Cup, though the McCalla Trophy is still in existence. Now, this one I'm sad is gone, and this one has some really interesting stories. This is called, this Hulk of a behemoth of a trophy is called Old Ironsides. And it was for what they called the Tri-State Big Three. It's still kind of played, but the trophy itself has not been in existence for a while. And it was Pitt, University of Pittsburgh versus Penn State versus WVU in that whole kind of region. It was played every year from 1951 to 1984. Here's the kicker. That monster of a trophy was 200 pounds. The base, it was a triangular base. You can only see the one picture. There aren't many pictures of it in existence, and I'll get to that in a second. It was a triangular base because each of the things represented one of the 3 schools, Pitt, Penn State, WVU. By the way, the stainless steel on the base, 1 inch thick. That's why it weighed 200 pounds. Anyway, the last year it was played was in 1984 when Penn State won it, and then, through whatever reason, the Penn State people had to notify the rest of the schools that Old Ironsides went missing. Apparently a search was conducted. No evidence of the trophy was ever turned up, so wherever Old Ironsides is, who's to say? But that one went defunct, and come on, who wouldn't want to compete? Where would you put something like that? I would put it like right in the middle of like, I don't know what they called them in other colleges, but when I was in college, we called it like the quad, where we would go. There was like the academic quad, the residential quad, the fraternity quad, things like that. I'd just put it right in the middle. Bam! Look at this 200-pound, and one of those trophies, and to whomever at Penn State, if you happen to be watching this or know who did it, kudos to you, because you really have to want a 200-pound triangular stainless steel trophy if you're gonna walk away with that thing. So kudos to you. But that was a long one, but I really enjoyed it because, man, there was a lot of trophies. And I'm sorry for the pictures and whatnot. Please don't watch all this video at once, or, in any case, I recommend maybe not watching it at all, but it was fun. I always enjoy it. I'm going to have another sip. Since this is an American beer, it's going to be a real easy one this time. Cheers, my friends. If you're having one along with me, we're going to wrap it up. One more sip, and by the time this is over, Aaron, sports cards and things at Aloha Friday should be kicking off, or probably going for a few minutes. But that is going to do it for this time. I will be back tomorrow. And this one came from a friend of mine because I asked her, I said, hey, I need something odd that I can vamp about for 15, 20 minutes, or in this case, well over half an hour. Apologies for that, but thank you if you stuck around. I really do appreciate it. And she gave me a manuscript that might be one of the most interesting definitely the most interesting I've ever heard of, but could quite possibly be one of the most interesting in the world. You might not want to miss that because it's going to be an interactive one because they actually have digitally publicized this manuscript, so we're going to take a look at that at the end of tomorrow's episode. But that is going to do it for now. The ACC was, there was a lot of trophies. We'll have to see. And again, we're going to see a lot of the doubles now because a lot of these are non-conference games, so future episodes, especially as we get down to like the Pac-12 and I don't even know if they still call it the West Coast Conference or the WAC or whatever, the Western Athletic Conference. I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. It should be cut down just because there's going to be a lot less crossover. But we are going to end with this, my post ramble, but before bedtime thought. Since we know a tomato is a fruit, wouldn't that make ketchup a jam? Have a good night, everybody.